Don't you hate it when you're trying to play the Scandinavian Defense, but your opponent just plays something weird instead? Well, that's what this video is about. The goal of this video is to help you gain rating points by giving you a simple plan you can use against all of the common, strange sidelines that people will try to play to get out of the Scandinavian Defense. In this video, we'll be going over the push variation, we'll be going over d4, the transposition into the Blackmar-Diemer Gambit, we'll be going over knight f3, the Tennison Gambit, we'll be going over knight c3, and then finally we'll be talking about systems where our opponent captures, and then instead of playing knight c3, they instead play for a system with d4 and then c4 with tempo. So I'd like to start this video with a comment from a viewer. Wannabe Pirate Os says, I really want to try this out, but I'm seeing e5 rather than e takes d5 literally 90% of the time at 1600 Lichess Blitz. Don't know if I'm shadow banned or what. This particular comment was left on my other Scandi video called the Secret Queen d6 Scandi. Make sure to check it out if you haven't seen it already. But the variation he's talking about here is what I call the push variation, which tends to be much more common at the beginner and intermediate level, but occasionally you will see more advanced players go for this. So is our pirate friend shadow banned? Probably not. It's more likely that his opponent is just trying to trick him into playing a French defense. After all, if we play something like c5, they play d4, and we play e6, we have transposed into the advanced French. And this is a fairly reasonable way to play if you know the French really well, but there is a slightly more accurate way to play, which I'll be teaching you. So the next time you play the Scandinavian Defense and they push their pawn, the move to remember is c5. Now here, if they do play d4, we can capture and then develop our knight. This will give us a very nice edge out of the opening, and it's here that I can start to talk about our development plan a little bit. So no matter what, once your opponent pushes their pawn, we're going to end up with a French structure, and if you know anything about the French defense at all, you probably know about the bad bishop. One of the main plans in the French defense is usually just trading off this terrible bishop, but since we didn't start with e6 like in the actual French defense, in these lines we'll always be able to get our bishop to f5, and it is so important to remember to do that. Afterwards, we can complete our French pawn structure, and we'll develop our pieces like this. Our knight will want to rotate in to the g6 square. Afterwards, our bishop will usually want to be on e7. Afterwards, we'll castle short. And this should end up as a very comfortable position for us where we have all the benefits of the French defense without the major downsides. But let's say they don't play d4 and they play a little bit smarter. Like I said, usually when they advance their pawn to e5, they're trying to get you into a French defense, specifically an advanced French. The smarter way to do that would be by starting with c3, preparing d4. That way, if we were to play something like knight to c6, d4, and e6, we're once again in an advanced French. So how do we get an improvement to the advanced French when our opponent starts with c3? And if you're paying attention, the answer should be a very natural move, bishop to f5. Remember, whenever your opponent pushes, the main weakness of this is that you can get a French with a good bishop. Don't forget to develop your bishop early. So they play d4, continuing their plan. We'll of course push e6, defending our pawn, and then our development plan here will look something like this. We'll want our knight on c6 and a queen on b6, putting pressure on the d4 pawn. This will be a priority. This knight again will want to go to e7 and then route to g6. And then this bishop again will usually want to be on e7. Assuming it doesn't capture back a pawn on c5, let's quickly go through some example moves. Our opponent starts knight f3, we would start knight c6. Again, our priority is attacking d4, bishop b5, queen b6. They take, we would recapture with pawn. Now we can capture and then push. This is a pretty common theme in the advanced French. Our opponent castles. Afterwards, we can develop our knight and then our bishop and get castled short. So we've covered d4, we've covered c3. The final lines I'm going to cover are knight f3, which usually transposes, and then f4, variations with f4. First, we'll quickly cover knight f3. Now here, pinning the knight is considered slightly more accurate, but I like playing bishop f5, keeping things transpositional. After all, regardless if your opponent starts with c3 or just plays d4, after playing e6, we should be in very familiar territory in our improved French defense. Systems with f4. So usually variations with f4 are pretty scary, but when your opponent plays f4 and the advanced variation in the Scandinavian defense, you have absolutely nothing to be worried about. In fact, you can play almost all of the same plans I just went over. Let's talk about it. Knight f3, we play e6. Let's say they play c3, we would play knight c6. d4, queen b6. Another important rule of queen b6, by the way, is locking down their dark bishop to the defense of their b-pawn, bishop d3, and it's here that we get to see the main difference between our normal system and systems where our opponent starts with an early f4, which is we have the h6 square open for our knight. This isn't usually a square we want to put our knight because they can just capture it and open up our kingside pawn structure. And the reason developing to h6 can be a little bit more accurate is that while e7 is perfectly reasonable, this is a square where we want our bishop, not our knight, and it's not like they have to trade with us. So I would say the most important thing to remember in systems with f4, remember that you do in fact have the h6 square for your knight, and you should be doing perfectly fine. And that's how you can always get a better position out of the opening against the advanced variation by turning it into an improved French defense. Now this is an opening that's pretty much exclusively played at the beginner and the intermediate level. Like I said, usually I assume people are trying to get into a French defense. It looks like beginners will run into this variation 18% of the time, whereas if you're over 2000, you're only running into it about 7% of the time. So I noticed something really interesting in the beginner statistics. I'm not sure if you guys did, but did you notice that 10% of players are playing knight c3 here? Well, this is the second line we'll cover. What happens if your opponent plays knight to c3? And the move here should be fairly obvious. Knight to c3 is inaccurate because we can push. And there are two ways to play this position as white. There's the correct way and there's the incorrect way. The correct way involves moving your knight back to e2 and playing this in a similar style to the Kennedy variation and the Nimzovich. In fact, if we take out all of the ratings again under 2000, you'll notice this variation actually has a lot of venom for white, so we will be going over it in detail. But it is a variation mostly played by beginners, so we should definitely go over the early mistakes, starting with what to do if your opponent goes knight to d5, and our plan here is almost always just going to be reinforcing our pawn in the center, getting a nice space advantage. And if you're paying attention to this knight's escape squares, they're running pretty low. In fact, we are threatening to trap our opponent's knight here with c6, and as you can see in the database, almost everyone just lets you do that. In fact, the only way to save the knight is by playing c3, we push c6, and then they retreat to b4, where it's protected by the pawn. But after something like knight f6, and c5, we have a huge space advantage, and our opponent has essentially thrown away their advantage as white and given it to us. So that's how to beat knight d5. Next, we'll quickly cover knight b5 because so many people play it. Now, like always, we're going to start e5, reinforcing that pawn. Then afterwards, very similarly to the d5 line, we'll be kicking our opponent's knight. c6 here would be fine, but considering we're going to play c5 anyways, we can play a6, and it's a little bit more accurate. This will force your opponent's knight back to the a3 square, or if you want, you can just capture it and double up their pawns. You'll protect your hanging pawn. We have plenty of space, so we can just develop naturally. Get castled. This bishop will usually want to pin their knight, and that's why knight to b5 is considered inaccurate. The final line we'll cover with knight to c3 is when we push d4, and they play the correct move, they retreat to e2. Considering this line plays very differently when your opponent knows what they're doing, we're going to go to the master's database for this one. And like we always do, we're going to start with the move pawn to e5, reinforcing our center. Afterwards, the line goes knight g3. And as scary as this variation is, we can quickly take a look at the win rate, the move that you need to remember if you run into this. And it is exceptionally rare outside of the higher level, but you need to know bishop to e6. Why? Because your opponent as white wants to play bishop to c4, and that's going to be a monster bishop. They're going to have both of their knights on the king side going for an attack, so your focus should be entirely on getting your king to the queen side of the board by castling. This means we get to play f6, reinforcing our center. Afterwards, knight c6, queen d7, and then we'll castle. The next most common sideline we'll be covering is knight f3 with 4% of games played. This is the Tennison Gambit in the Zukertort opening. It's considered a pretty dubious gambit. We'll start by capturing. They go knight g5, and like I said, the Tennison Gambit is a little bit dubious. In fact, they're usually hoping they get one particular trap on you, which I'll quickly show you for fun. The Tennison Gambit trap goes knight f6, they play d3, we capture their pawn, they capture with their bishop, and then we play h6, hoping to kick their knight. Afterwards, knight takes f7, we take their knight, and then they have a very nice deflection tactic, bishop g6 check, allowing them to win our queen and then get castled. Meanwhile, our king is on the g6 square. Obviously, it's very important to not fall for this, so I'll be recommending a completely different system, starting with e5. This is the line I've always played against the Tennison Gambit, and the idea is after they recapture, we have f5 with tempo, and this check is just nothing to be scared of. Now, the engine move here, which almost no one's going to find, but is a really interesting idea, is d4. This is a clean piece sacrifice, but they get to play queen h5 check. And if you don't want to hang your rook, you'll have to move your king up to d7 right in front of your queen. Super interesting line, but only 1% of people find it. Instead, usually people will just keep digging their own grave. And if we look at our resulting position, it's our turn. We have a huge lead in space, and all our opponent's done is move their knight around a lot. And it's considered most accurate to start with knight c6, sort of like in the style of a Grand Prix. That way you can block this bishop check, and then if they pin you, you can just bring this knight to e7. But even if you don't remember that, you're still doing completely fine here. So that is the Tennison Gambit out of the way. Next up, we have the other common gambit people try against the Scandinavian. This is the Blackmar-Diemer Gambit. I've covered one line of this, the von Popiel Gambit, on my channel, and we're always going to capture the first pawn. Afterwards, the correct move is knight c3. If we were to play knight f6, this would lead to theoretical lines like the von Popiel from our opponent. So in the interest of having a simple line to get an advantage against white here, I'm going to be recommending the very boring e5, the Limburger counter gambit. The idea being, of course, if they capture, we can transpose into a slightly better endgame for us where our opponent either loses castling rights or undevelops their knight, and people will take the pawn and allow this all the way up into the Grandmaster level. To be clear though, the most accurate ways to meet this opening are by either playing a knight takes e4 or queen to h5. Despite that, the second most common move is an inaccuracy, d5. And the reason this is considered inaccurate is because we can just push f5, reinforcing our pawn. And now, despite our opponent sacrificing an entire pawn, we have this huge lump of pawns in the center of the board and a huge space advantage. The best try is f3, which we'll reinforce with knight f6. Afterwards, we'll pin their knight and aim to win this pawn as well. Now let's look at some of the quote-unquote correct ways to play this, starting with knight takes e4. Here, we'll once again attempt to transpose into an endgame. This puts us a pawn up, so capturing by our opponent isn't advised, but that is what most people do. In fact, the correct way to play this is by starting with bishop d3, blocking and defending, and then preparing to play knight f3 with tempo. We'll prioritize developing our queenside and castling, and there's an important blunder to remember that you'll run into in these lines where they try to develop their bishop with tempo and just hang their pawn. Most people will know better and instead will play knight f3 with tempo, and here it's perfectly fine to just bring your queen all the way back to its starting square where your opponent can't attack it anymore. This will allow us to play moves like f5 with tempo, and then we have the opportunity to play for an advantage here. Arguably, the most important sideline to know is when they do play the Scandinavian, you capture back with their queen, and instead of playing knight c3, which depending on your level, between 80 and 90% of players will play, your opponent instead plays for a system with d4 and c4, usually starting with knight f3. And no matter what Scandinavian defense you play, once your opponent doesn't start with knight c3, you can always play for the same system. And this system is going to start by pinning your opponent's knight. Afterwards, you're going to play knight c6 and castle long. So let's say they play bishop e2. We would play knight c6, they castle short, we castle long, and then usually they'll play for d4 and c4. And first thing to look out for in these lands is always going to be your opponent hanging a pawn. I think they assume they can like remove the defender or something, but let's say they don't hang a pawn. And instead, let's say they start with c4. The square that you're almost always going to be retreating to in this system where they play for d4, c4, they don't play knight c3, you're almost always going to be retreating your queen to the d7 square, and maybe like 10% of the time you want to be on f5. And our middle game plans in this system are pretty much always going to be the same. Our opponent hasn't played very confrontationally. First of all, if they play d4, the exact same idea works. This is once again a very common pawn blunder. The most reasonable move is knight c3, and the way we're always going to play this is with e5 and f5, going for a huge kingside attack. Another important move to mention is going to be king b8. With the bishop on g4, usually, you're not too worried about your queen getting pinned to your king, but it is still an opposite side castling game, so the safer your king is, the better. But after we play f5, we'll of course want to develop our knight behind it, and then find a good square for our bishop, usually d6. It is important to start with e5 to prevent d4. Now that we know the basic ideas, let's go through another example where our opponent plays a little bit more accurately. Let's say they start with d4. Here, there's no knight to pin, so we won't start with our bishop. Instead, we'll start with our knight to c6. Important to note, knight to c3 here doesn't work because it just hangs a pawn, but it is a very common blunder. For some reason, only half of players find the hanging pawn. I'm not sure what that's about. So with knight c3 off the table, they'll usually play knight f3, and then of course we just transpose. We're of course threatening to capture and capture. Now let's say they play bishop e2. The next move in our system, of course, is castling long. We're now threatening to capture and then capture. So here we're going to assume they play the move that most grandmasters play, c4. This is the quote-unquote correct way to play this system as white. And here we can retreat to d7 or to f5. In this position, f5 is a little bit more accurate because we can take advantage of this pin some more. This is usually the reason you would want to play queen to f5 instead of queen to d7, and we can just play something like e6. After all, their pawn is pinned and is just simply a weakness. Don't forget to check out my video on the queen d6 Scandi linked on screen right now.